Have you ever tried to run a graphical application in a Docker container, only to be met with frustrating errors? If that's you, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving into the world of X11 forwarding for GUI apps running in Docker. I completely understand your frustration. Many users have faced similar issues when trying to access GUI applications in Docker containers. You're definitely not alone in this struggle. Let's set the stage for your specific question. You have a GUI app running in a Docker container on CentOS 7.1, and you want to access it via X11 forwarding from your Arch Linux client. You've done your homework, but things just aren't working out. Sound familiar? Let's explore this together. So, what could be causing the X11 forwarding to fail? It could be due to authentication issues, incorrect display settings, or even firewall configurations. We'll break it down step by step to help you troubleshoot effectively. And stick around. I have an alternative solution at the end that might just change the way you handle GUI applications in Docker. To begin resolving the X11 forwarding issue, the user should ensure that the display variable is correctly set in the Docker container. This variable should point to the host's IP address followed by the display number. Next, the user should check the permissions of the .authority file. This file is crucial for authentication, and it must be accessible to the user running the Docker container. After verifying the .xauthority file, the user should add the X authentication token inside the Docker container. This can be done using the xauth command. If the user still encounters issues, they can enable extensive debugging for SSH. This will help identify where the problem lies during the X11 forwarding process. As an alternative solution, the user might consider switching to a VNC setup. This can often provide better performance and reliability compared to X11 forwarding. Fun fact, did you know that X11 was originally developed in the mid-1980s? It's amazing how far technology has come, yet some issues still persist. Now let's look at the answers provided by other users. An alternative solution involves using the xhost command to allow Docker to access the X server. First, install xhost if you haven't already. Then, set the display variable to 0.0 and run xhost with local Docker. After that, execute your Docker command with the display variable set. Now, let's shift our focus to a different response. An alternative approach to X11 forwarding in Docker involves using VNC instead. This user switched to a Tiger VNC setup, which significantly improved performance compared to X11 forwarding. They recommend running a VNC server on the host machine, not inside the Docker container, and adjusting the display variable if necessary. If you still want to use X11 forwarding, ensure that the .authority file is correctly copied and mapped. For example, if you SSH into the server as a user, copy the .authority file and map it in your Docker run command. That's it for that response. Let's explore another one. An alternative approach to X11 forwarding in Docker is to use VNC instead. This user found that switching to a Tiger VNC setup significantly improved performance compared to X11 forwarding. The VNC server runs on the host machine, while the GUI application runs inside the Docker container. For running Docker non-interactively, avoid sharing the .authority file with the container. Instead, use SSH with a proxy command to run X11 applications directly. If using OpenSSH version 7.3 or higher, you can use the command sshj user on host at host machine, user on Docker at Docker container, XIS. If running Docker interactively, set the network to host and ensure X11 use localhost is enabled. You can export the display variable or use the -e option when starting the container. This allows for easier access to the GUI applications. Lastly, if you want to set everything up manually without using SSHX, you can use socat to pipe the X11 traffic directly. This requires SSH access to the host without the -x option and setting the display variable appropriately. Here's the alternative I promised. Consider using VNC instead of X11 forwarding. Many users find that VNC provides better performance and reliability for accessing GUI applications in Docker. And there you have it. With these troubleshooting steps, you should be able to get your GUI app running smoothly in Docker. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe for more tips and tricks.